Hi to all. Hope all of you are hale and hearty. Today I'm going to be covering a topic related to general dentistry called documentation. Uh, Documentation is a very simple topic. It is being done by all of us on a day-to-day basis in the dental clinics. It is a record which is maintained with respect to each patient you are dealing with. Mm, though it is simple to understand, it is by no means a topic which can be evaded because it is of prime importance. It helps to ensure the consent which is obtained by the patients and the patient expectations. It also helps to document the kind of expectations which the dentist has of the patient with regards to the treatment which the dentist is going to be explaining. It helps us to make or formulate decisions, and it also records how you, as a dentist, or the patient, that is the client, has responded to different situations because everything has to be written down. Uh, it is also important to record this information to support proper treatment planning, and one of the most important reasons is to ward off your medical legal cases. So a very famous saying in our fraternity is that if something has not been documented, it has not been done. So if you would like to prove yourself innocent in court, you have to have substantial evidence to do so. So the agenda for today's topics are: we will be discussing about the medical records. This is something which you have been familiarized with since year 3. The purpose of taking these medical records, the ethics which are to be followed, the significance, the basic information which you are recording in the case history, and the electronic medical records will be covered in part 2 of the lecture, that is the hospital information system. Okay, so as you all know, a medical record is the record of the patient, which consists of sufficient data written in the sequence of events to justify the diagnosis which you arrive at and warrant the treatment and the end results. It is to be adequately informative, scientific, and legally protective. So basically, as soon as your patient walks into the clinic, as you all know, when you screen the patient for the first time, you ask the basic information about the patient so that you are able to build up a rapport with the patient, as well as you get to know a little bit about the patient as well. You ask the patient what ails or what is troubling him or her at the point of time, why he or she has actually visited the clinic, how we may be of assistance, and of course it has to be jotted down in chronological order. So if the patient walks in with pain, pain should be the chief complaint, followed by any other complaints which the patient may have. So you are supposed to address the chief complaint first, followed by the other complaints in order. The purpose of keeping these medical records, the first is to educate the students such as yourselves, as well as the resident physicians. This is in the hospitals, to determine the best diagnosis and treatment plan. So once it's written down, you have a clear picture of what is going on in the oral cavity and what the patient expects. So you are able to arrive at the best possible diagnosis after you conduct all the investigations necessary, and then you can of course formulate your the most suitable treatment plan. To provide data for internal hospital auditing and quality assurance, this is something which I'm sure you would have seen all the faculty and the clinical assistants doing. From time to time, we do hold audits in the various departments and the polyclinics. This is to find out whether the treatment which has been conducted has been satisfactory for the patients, whether the dental materials which we have are efficient, or whether they are outdated, or whether we require the indent of new materials, and of course the quality assurance, like I said before, whether the patients are satisfied with our treatment approach and the quality of service which has been provided to them. To provide data for medical research, this is something you're all familiar with because you are all conducting research at your own levels. So it's a form of data which which you can collect from the case histories. So I'm sure a lot of you have seen your seniors or you yourselves are involved with research topics which involve you digging out information from the past medical records of patients. So it's self-explanatory. To receive payment benefits from your health insurance provider, this is very, very important. So if your patient mm, has subscribed to an insurance plan and the patient wants cashless service, it's good for the patient, but what about you? How do you get reimbursed? So to get reimbursed, you have to provide the proper documentation, without which the insurance company will just try to haggle its way out from making any sort of payment. So then either you suffer a loss or your patient suffers the loss because the insurance does not sanction the claim. Yeah. Okay, so coming to ethics, you all know what ethics is. There is a fine line between ethics and law. Ethics, you cannot be charged with it in court, but it is something which every dentist is supposed to follow. So it is more of an act of good conscience. Yeah, so documentation has to be done ethically, and it is also a legal protection for both the patient as well as the healthcare provider as well. So which is why we keep stressing on the fact that whenever a patient says something and it is to be recorded, it has to be recorded in the patient's own words, because let us say that you take the chief complaint and you add a few technical terms to it which the patient does not understand. Later on, God forbid, but if the patient sues you and takes you to court, and the chief complaint is being shown, the dentist is going to deny, the patient is going to deny it, saying that he or she does not even understand what these terms are. Which is why it is very, very important for us to document the complaints exactly in the words spoken by the patient, so that there can be no disagreement over the case at that time. Okay. Like I said, the failure to maintain the proper documentation can compromise on the ethics and the conduct. So if you have documented it once, you don't need to keep repeating your questions again and again, especially when the patient is being moved from one dentist to another or from one department to another, as you would have so frequently seen in the colleges. So it's of prime importance, because then the patient also gets frustrated because the same questions are being asked again and again. So all the dentist or the student who is treating has to do is to just open the file and everything is there in front of him. The significance, like I said, it serves to avoid the omission or on unnecessary repetition of diagnosis and treatment measures, so the patient does not have to be explained to again and again or questioned again and again. And it serves as the evidence to support or to refuse the legal questions that arise. So like I said, if it is documented, it can be proved in court. It helps the doctor on his self-evaluation of medical practice. So later on, like after you have formulated your diagnosis, you of course come to the faculty, and the faculty do evaluate whether everything is okay. The faculty does come to see the case on a personal basis, and then of course we do compare and see what best could be the treatment offered to the patient. And like I mentioned before, it protects the doctor in cases of suits. With regards to help for the hospital, it furnishes the documentary evidence for purposes of evaluation of hospital care in terms of quality, quantity, and adequacy. This is what I was talking about with respect to the audits which are conducted. And of course, it protects the hospital in the event of legal questions. Now, with respect to the public health authorities, it gives reliable statistics. So this is why documentation is very important. We are actually serving the community directly as well as indirectly, and this is how it does it indirectly. We are providing reliable statistics which helps the authorities to plan the prevention and social measures to meet the needs of the community, which keeps changing from time to time. These statistics also serve as an early warning for the incidence of communicable diseases. So it is very, very coming to the basic information which is recorded. I'm sure you're all well aware of this, because you're doing this almost every day as and when you interact with new patients. So you record the name, the date of birth, the residence, the emergency contact, the sex of the patient, the blood type, the date of the last physical examination, whether the patient has been to the hospital for any reasons, uh, for any reasons which may interact with the dental treatment, more so with the medication which we may or may not have to prescribe, the results of the tests and screenings which the patient has gone through. So, right now, screening is the need of the hour with the COVID 19 becoming a pandemic. The major illnesses and surgeries with the dates. So, if the patient has undergone any major surgery like something related to the heart or the lungs, so it has to be recorded, and whether the patient is on any medication at present, or whether the patient has just recently stopped taking some sort of medication, it all has to be documented. Whether the patient is allergic to anything, this is very very important, because we do prescribe antibiotics, penicillin being the drug of choice. Also, we need to know if the patient has been, although it is rare, we do require to know if the patient has been allergic to the local anesthesia which is given. And more than the local anesthesia, it could be due to the other components packaged inside the local anesthetic bottle. So, if the patient has had an allergic reaction, we need to know about it so that we can take the precautionary measures. Whether there are any chronic diseases or whether there are any illnesses which are running in the family, it of course has to be documented. Coming to the patient's personal data, this is again something which we document from time to time. The OP number is for the hospital record and for our record purposes, for easy bookkeeping. The name, the age, the gender, the occupation, because there are certain diseases which are common in certain occupations. The address, to come to know about the locality and to know if there are any diseases which are prevalent in that locality or community. The IC number or the passport number is taken for record purposes. The date on which the patient has come, and of course the patient's signature is very very important as soon as the case history has started. So the patient is actually signing to state that he or she has been explained about the history which has been taken and the kind of treatment which is going to be performed for the patient. So it's very very important. If the patient's signature is not there, that could significantly weaken your case in court. So please don't forget to get the signature of the patients before you start off with your treatment. Also of prime importance is that if you suggest or you advocate some sort of treatment and the patient is not willing for that treatment, and the patient wants some treatment which is not ethical and which you do not perform to do, please document it in the case history, and please don't forget to take the patient's signature. It is very very important, because this helps to safeguard you in the future when the patient might try to sue you. So please do not forget this. It's a very very important point. Now coming to the case history, like I said, the patient's chief complaint has to be documented in the patient's own words for medical legal considerations, as well as so that the patient can also explain, and so that we can also understand, and we can explain to the patient what could be the possible reason for the complaint and what could be the best possible treatments which can be performed. The site and duration is very important. So once the patient suggests what the complaint is, then we have to probe further to find out where exactly the problem is, how long the patient has been suffering from the problem, and of course there are many patients who have more than one complaint, so the complaints have to be jotted down in order of priority. The history of presenting illness is nothing but an elaborate description of your chief complaint. So you have to note down the mode of onset, like how it has started, why it has started, how long the complaint has been there, whether this complaint, the problem is progressing or digressing, what is the nature of the problem, what is the type of the problem. So if it's pain, what kind of pain is it? Is it a sharp shooting pain, lancinating kind of pain, pricking pain, or is it the dull constant aching pain? Are there any aggravating factors, like does the pain increase while chewing or while consuming cold foods and liquids, or are there any relieving factors, like does the pain go away when the patient holds a hot pack or a cold pack to the mouth? to the face, or is there any medication which is relieving the pain? Has the patient purchased any drugs over the counter? Are there any associated systems? So you have to know whether there's any underlying systemic disorders also, so that it can be targeted over there as well. Now, coming to the past history, we have to, of course, like I said before, we have to review the patient for any illness. Then, of course, we have to check the various systems like the respiratory, the cardiac, the renal, etc., etc. The previous treatments which have been undertaken by the patient have to be jotted down, the history of hospitalization, the vaccinations, and of course, if the patient is pregnant or is lactating, because certain drugs do react or have adverse effects to pregnancy and lactation, you're all aware. Now, the drug history, this is what I was talking about. The history of or the usage of any medications which the patient is currently on or which the patient has been having, whether the patient is allergic or hypersensitive to any medication or any drug, and the nature, dosage, and duration of the medication which the patient has or has had in the past. Coming to the dental history, we have to record whether the patient has come to our clinic in the past, or which of course will be mentioned in the case history if the patient is a visiting patient again, or if the patient has been to any other dentist, because we can assess the kind of treatment which has been done. Of course, please keep in mind, we never ever badmouth another dentist. It is not ethical. We always try to keep up the name of the fraternity in the eyes of the public. But we also come to know about the attitude of the patient. So we'd like to ask about the experience of the patient with respect to that dentist over there in the past, and we can actually assess whether the patient is cooperative, or the patient is anxious, or the patient is fearful. Whether the patient had any complications with respect to the past treatment, like was the extraction traumatic, or was there any reaction to the local anesthesia which was given, etc. Of course, like I said, there are various illnesses which run in the family, diabetes being the most common, hypertension, certain blood disorders, so it has to be documented, because if it's affecting this particular patient, it could be affecting the family as well. And of course, we get to know better on how to take preventive measures or how to treat them. Coming to the personal history, we record the diet and the appetite. The diet, of course, it is for assessing the sugar levels. The appetite, whether the patient is eating properly, or whether the complaint is actually preventing the patient from taking meals on time. Whether the patient's sleep patterns are erratic or whether they are normal. The marital status, to see if there are any communicable diseases which could be transmitted to the better half or to the children. The bowel habits and micturition, whether it is normal or whether it is erratic or irregular. Of course, we do record the deleterious habits, like whether the patient is a smoker or chews tobacco, or is taking any sort of drugs. Parafunctional habits like nail biting, pencil chewing, lip biting, tongue thrusting, night grinding, all these habits have an effect, a deleterious effect on the oral cavity, that is the hard and the soft tissues. So it has to be recorded so that we can treat them. Maybe we require psychological treatment, or maybe we require habit breaking appliances, so it can be prescribed depending upon the need of the hour. The oral hygiene program, this is very important. We need to record the brushing technique, because most of the patients which we interact with are not exactly practicing the proper brushing technique, which we all know is the modified Bas technique. So we need to educate the patient so that the patient can maintain proper oral hygiene, and we can prescribe different types of cleaning aids like dental floss or mouthwashes or interproximal brushes, so on and so forth. So coming to the examination, so once we are able to localize the problem and we are able to circle it, then of course we have to inspect, or we have to examine it. So the four stages in the examination, as you're all aware, are the inspection, that can be carried out, followed by the palpation. So we actually use our fingers or the instruments to palpate, the fingers to palpate, The instruments are used to percuss, and of course we have the auscultation. The auscultation is not so much carried out inside the oral cavity, but for systemic disorders, yes, we do perform the auscultation. Now, coming to the general physical examination, gait is nothing but the style or the nature of walking. So, certain neurological or neuromuscular disorders prevent the patient from walking in the normal fashion, and they have a characteristic trait like when it comes to Parkinson's. The built, whether the patient is actually well built or poorly built, whether the patient is nourished or malnourished. The vital signs, we of course do check the blood pressure before conducting any dental treatment, which could have an impact. We check the pulse, the temperature, the respiratory rate. We check for pallor, icterus, clubbing. We check for cyanosis. We check the lymph nodes, whether the infection has actually started involving the lymph nodes, so whether the infection is spreading. We check for any sort of swelling, that is edema, the localized swelling, and of course we check for wasting diseases as well. We also do check the patient as a whole to see whether the patient is actually fit and healthy, and whether there is well-being. Now, coming to the intraoral examination, this has been taught to you guys time and again, and you guys are you're pretty familiar with the terms. So we, of course, the first thing which we check is the number of teeth present, the teeth missing and why they are missing, whether they are congenitally missing or whether they have been removed for some reason, and if so, what was the reason. Whether there are impacted teeth, of course, we require the help of periapical radiographs or OPGs to actually assess the status of impacted teeth. Dental caries, of course, you're all using the ICIDA score to jot down the extent of the lesion and the site of the lesion, whether it is whether it may be the buccal surface or the palatal surface, so on and so forth, occlusal surface, proximal surfaces, etc. Root stumps, whether there are teeth which have not been properly removed, or whether the teeth have decayed so far that only the root stumps are left behind. If there are any fractured teeth, for example an Ellis class 3 for the anteriors, or a fractured cusp in the posterior teeth, and so on. Whether there are any discolored teeth, because they may or most probably will be a non-vital tooth, so that has to be noted down. We check for mobility. This is probably most commonly done to assess the periodontal status of the teeth. The wasting diseases, we check for attrition, abrasion, erosion, etc. We do check whether the patient has been issued prosthesis, whether it be removable or fixed, to assess the status of the prosthesis, whether it requires repair or whether it requires to be replaced, whether the patient is actually happy with it, or whether the patient would like a new prosthesis as well. And of course we do check the occlusion for orthodontic purposes primarily, to find out whether the patient requires orthodontic treatment, or whether the patient is suffering from traumatic occlusion, or it has to be recorded. Yeah. Then coming to the soft tissues, we do check all the soft tissues which are associated with the oral cavity, to check for any lesions or to check for any abnormalities, any swellings. So this is all done regularly, and the screening is done to patient. Coming to the examination of the lesion, so if the patient does have a lesion, we have to explain it in detail. That is, we have to describe the lesion, we have to describe the size, the extent, the location, the consistency, whether it's fluctuating or not, so on and so forth. Then of course we arrive at a provisional diagnosis. So this diagnosis is jotted down by the doctor or by the student just before all the lab investigations and the radiographic investigations are carried out. So this is basically just to narrow down the most probable diagnosis which could be ailing the patient. So common provisional diagnoses are like acute periapical abscess or deep occlusal caries, oral lycoplanus. So then we also write down differential diagnosis. So in case if it's not the most probable diagnosis, what could be the other possibilities which could be ailing the patient. So that has to be jotted down, so that once the final so that it's easier for us to arrive at the final diagnosis. So once the lab investigations are back, and once the radiographic results are back, then we can arrive. The most common vitality tests, I'm sure all aware of, are the thermal and the electric pulse test. So that has been carried out since throughout the ages. So now, then of course, after all the tests have been carried out, you arrive at your most probable diagnosis. So that is called as the final diagnosis. Of course, like I said before, since the chief complaints, since the complaints are jotted down in sequential order, so should be the final diagnosis. So if the patient is having pain, the diagnosis of the pain, like symptomatic apical periodontitis, should be the first diagnosis, followed by your generalized gingivitis if the patient has the classical signs of gingivitis. Yeah, so on and so forth. Then the patient can be treated according to the prior. We also assess the prognosis of the condition, so that we can give the patient a fair warning. So if it is excellent, we strongly suggest that the patient goes for the treatment. If the prognosis comes to be poor or questionable, we give the option of the choice to the patient on whether the patient would like to carry out treatment A or treatment B, depending upon the will of the patient. Yeah. So if the patient is willing to give it a shot to try to save the tooth, we go ahead with treatment A. Or if the patient says no, I would rather that you remove it and just get it replaced, so then we go for treatment B, so on and so forth. This of course is your treatment plan. So if there is an emergency treatment which is required, it is of course recorded in the emergency section. Then of course we have your prophylactic treatment, your restorative treatment, and so on and so forth. This is something which you guys have been filling since a long time, so you're very well aware. The follow-up, we review the progress of the patient after all the treatment has been completed. So depending upon the caries risk which you have categorized the patient under, you can either review the patient every 2 to 4 months or 4 to 6 months. So it depends upon the needs of the electronic medical records. This will be covered in the next lecture, that is your hospital information system. So it is basically the digitalization or the conversion of your data from the hard casing to the software. So basically it is all electronic, and it is all digitalized, so everything is available on the computers, and it can be displayed on the kiosks. So instead of waiting for the documents to travel from one department to the other, or from one dentist to the other, everything can be done by the click of a button. So you can either email it, or you can send the link through a drive, or it's available on the internet, or through a local area network, the LAN network, which is shared by common computers at a hospital. So that can be practiced. It is very good. It's easier. It increases the convenience both for the dentist as well as the doctor as well as the patients. However, there is an immediate there is the requirement for an initial large fund, because the initial investment takes up quite a bite out of your pocket. But of course, in the long run, it works out to be simpler and easier, because you don't require to invest so much on storage space. So like we see all the case histories which are constantly being stored in the numerous cupboards which are present in the clinics, and of course all those cupboards, they take up the space. The cabinets take up so much amount of space. So we are compromising on space, we are compromising on the time, we are compromising on so many factors. So all of that can be it can be waived off once you go digital. So this will be covered off in the next class. So bye for now. If you guys have any doubts, please feel free to comment in the comment section, or you can text me anytime. I'm I'm always there. Yeah, so we can have further discussions based on your responses. Okay, so thank you so much. Take care, stay safe, and see you next week.